Mental health is a big issue in America. You need to do something about it. You know what I
All
mean?
Hello, dear YouTube Sangha. Welcome to this episode of Peace of Mind. I am Dharma Peace.
I'm Dharma Ocean.
And I'm Dharma Sense. Welcome to our channel.
Yeah, so today we will be discussing mental health, mental wellness, and the mental health crisis in America. Basically, this came to mind for me because I realize we all struggle with that. The best place to start, I suppose, is our minds. So that kind of is the governor of everything that we do.
If we want to live good lives, we need to take care of ourselves, which includes our minds. Pretty much all three of us have experience with some form of mental health struggle or issue. And we also use similar tools in order to battle those. It's a serious problem. I've been looking at with Sense some of the research that's been done about this stuff. It was something like 60 million people struggled in America, struggled with some kind of mental health issue.
Basically, amounts to about 1 out of 5 people in America are affected with some type of mental health illness, which could be either anxiety disorder, depression. It can be something as severe as bipolar disorder. Common to our soldiers is PTSD. It's very prevalent in our society, and it can be as severe as people that have clinical schizophrenia, which is a whole different realm, a more serious level of mental illness, but mental illness nonetheless. And then what are the symptoms of mental illness, and how does that play out in society, and how can we as Buddhist practitioners help, and what can we do by helping ourselves to maybe set an example and help other people.
Mental health is amorphous. We can't quantify it the way that we would like. It's not a perfect world where everyone reports the things that are going on with them. Sometimes mental illness, the person suffering from mental illness will want to keep it to themselves for some other reason, and sometimes that reason is not well explained or understood. If we look at the actual phenomenon of dukkha, the fact that this world is suffering, that this experience deals a lot with dissatisfaction, then we're going to find that most everybody suffers from mental health issues or complications at some point in their lives. It's much more considerate to think of all people as a potential, they potentially need to have some sort of mental care, some support of some kind. So I think that, like, for me, it's more universalistic. Mental health and the mental health crisis is more universal than just the few, like the people that are in those statistics.
The whole idea behind these statistics is that they say this is an approximate determination we can make about how people are feeling in the year of 2021 compared to the year of 2020, right? So it's not, so Peace is saying throughout your entire lifespan you are likely to experience these mental health issues, which is true. I totally agree with that. But the statistic is from 2021, and that's only a particular point in people's lives, of which 1 in 5 were experiencing these things. Not everyone self-reports, and because of things like toxic masculinity, men might be completely depressed or completely whatever, have all kinds of mental issues, and then just not talk about it.
People don't want to seem weak, and at the same time, when they start to exhibit and admit mental health issues, people they get kind of like pushed into a corner, right? So like that, I mean, that is unfortunately that's a lot of stigmatization, and we see it bear out in a lot of case studies. What is the X factor of it all? And I would actually say it's individualism that's really the issue. Because COVID, like before COVID, before I left the country, we were on the track to mental health consciousness, where everybody was like, all right, we want to get help for our mental illnesses, not stigmatize and ostracize people. and I come back, and now all of a sudden we're back where we were.
COVID definitely seemed to have make a major impact on people, especially in terms of mental health. I mean, I had a terrible time during COVID, and I was feeling like lonely and depressed and anxious, and more than usual. So I think that definitely made an impact on mental health, and I don't think it necessarily is getting that much better post COVID.
Since you mentioned to us earlier that you're concerned about young people, and is it young girls that are being affected by mental health issues these days? Is that more prevalent?
Well, I'm a dad. I've got a 15-year-old daughter, Amira, and I'm concerned about her well-being. And all I ever hear about people when they're talking about mental health of teens is how social media is detrimental for them, and how teen girls are the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
So I'm very concerned.
Yeah, I can second that because I am a teacher, I'm a school teacher, and I do see how important it is for young girls, and from it's as early as 7-year-olds to middle school. They all are concerned. They have like a sort of a zeitgeist or an outlook for social media already, and it is a little bit concerning. I don't know, but Ocean, do we sound like a couple of boomers to you, or like what do you?
To a degree, I agree with you, but if a young person watches this, that's exactly what they're going to think.
It's troubling to young people because they don't even know how to handle real world social exchanges, right? So now social media is actually predicated on something that is pre-social media. It's how we grew up to socialize, but then they created an interface, to a virtual interface, on how to interact with each other, but we're not seeing the actual social cues, and we're not seeing real world affirmation for ourselves.
Even when we had flip phones, it was just for the purpose of making a phone call. But now kids can be on social media literally 10, 15 hours a day, right?
Yeah,
It can be almost never ending. And so
indeed.
how that could not be a contributing factor to mental health is beyond me, because what are they doing on social media? They're comparing themselves to others. They're doing all these, activities that are essentially causing or could cause self-esteem issues, things like
Mhm.
that.
But people do that
Especially,
anyway, even without social media. Like when you're a kid, I've been a kid, wasn't that long ago. I was still comparing myself to other people. Like regardless of as to if I was using social media, I would see someone who wore cool clothes or had cool hair or who looked better than me, and I was still, you know what I mean? Like that's just human nature to compare yourself to other people. I don't disagree with you that it is a factor in being a cause for mental health issues. I just don't think that it's the only factor. I mean, our lives have been changing consistently for decades. You're right, it probably does contribute, but we shouldn't be like this is the cause of all of our problems and make it like a demon out of it. Like
Well,
like you guys
I'm
all have
not
social
you.
media
I'm
accounts
not.
yourselves, right?
I
If it
like.
was really that
I
bad, you
mean, I
would just
never
delete
said
it.
it was the cause of all the problems, but I think it's a monumental cause. I think you're
Yeah.
downplaying the cause. Um, it, it, I think it. I think it has just watching my daughter, I know it has a detrimental effect. And that's different from saying like the internet and information and those kinds of things. It's social media in particular because it's designed to be addictive.
Mhm.
It's meant to give you dopamine hits
Yeah.
from things you click on. So you keep coming back for more. If you're not interested in anything else and your value is based on how many likes you get on something, there's a problem there. And then you're also, I think that in terms of like how you learn how to deal socially with other people, I think there's a huge detriment in that where kids just don't have that kind of opportunity because they're not in those kinds of situations anymore. I think it's a huge problem. I think it's not the only problem. There's a lot of other contributing factors in our world to mental health issues. But in terms of like, especially kids, there's been no greater revolution in our lifetime than the information revolution. And
Absolutely.
it's really, I think, like our just sort of behavior just around the home is night and day different from what it was when I was growing up.
All right. Well, yes, we can clearly see that there's this sort of Pavlovian concept of the social media and how it changes our stimulus and how we're wired to react to other stimulus online. But there are also other factors such as COVID, like Ocean mentioned. So we went through the pandemic. Everyone went through it together, and we've observed that yes, there was definitely a downturn as far as mental health.
One of the leading causes of stress for people is money, and if they don't have enough to pay for the bills, for food, to, for childcare, for healthcare, of course they're going to be stressed out, and that's going to cause a huge impact on their mental health. And
Right.
so, if we can help solve the problem of poverty, then we would also be able to help solve the problem of crime and mental health issues and all kinds of other issues on top of it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. As somebody who struggles with coming from a family that doesn't come from wealth, it's so hard to climb the ladder. I would say that from my experience, upward momentum in this country, and that means like, climbing that ladder of wealth and just trying to make it is increasingly more difficult. The cost of living has skyrocketed. Whoever's saying that we need to mitigate budget expenses and get rid of concepts like Medicare for all and things like that, they are actually contributing as well to the plight of everybody else because I think that there is a disconnect between the everyday American and the American that is in, let's say a CEO office or in a trustee office. That they don't necessarily have the same uh, reckoning of what's happening here down on the floor, or as they say in the UK, on the tarmac.
Yeah, the way we live, working people compared to like the one percenters, the way we live is completely different. But I have friends who are lesser off, and not as well off, and they definitely suffer because of it. And I have compassion for them.
Yeah, there's you can't help but feel a little bit defeatist sometimes because, like, just so everybody knows, I'm okay mentally, but I deal with a lot of things like where I'm a veteran, have 3 degrees. I'm up to my master's now, so I'm basically overqualified for a lot of work, but I still face a lot of financial problems, and some of that also relates to like the credit system here, where you get like loan debt, or you get, which I don't really suffer from that much, but some people do suffer from that. So finances stack up a lot onto people, and they become oppressive in a sense, where it's like you just don't feel like you can get anywhere. You work so hard. In my case, you travel just to try to make ends meet and just to climb that ladder, but sometimes it gets nowhere. Um, but that's not to say that my mental health has gone down. It's actually gotten better because I practice meditation.
So that's the
I
thing, is
prac-
that we actually have tools to deal with these things, and meditation is probably the best thing that we can do. So
yeah.
thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, no problem. Because yeah, we need to be like, because a lot of these conversations I feel wind up talking about what's wrong, like we talk about the problem, but we don't talk about like the solution, right? I implore that people look into this, like research mental health in general and how the like getting a handle on metacognition, which is your self-talk, and also the voices in your head that you're not necessarily aware of. That also plays a role, because that could actually be ongoing and you're not necessarily conscientious of it. But I think that as meditators, we have become more and more aware of it.
Meditation is definitely a very good solution to that negative self-talk, like how you mentioned.
Yeah.
So again, I'm very open in expressing my experience with anxiety and panic, and yeah, I would say I definitely during those bad times was having negative self-talk. I would think to myself, it would be really paranoid thoughts sometimes, like, is this food poisoned? Like, did somebody put something in it and now I'm gonna eat it and die? And all of that is coming from this paranoid self-talk. And I had some self-esteem issues, and I think that also that had to play with the negative self-talk that I was having in my head about like I'm not good enough, or like I'll never be able to date this girl that I like, or um, those kinds of things that uh, create this negative self-image and lead to low self-esteem.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now that I'm meditating more, I don't find myself being caught up as much. It still happens, but I'm able to have a little bit better handle of it and be a little bit more mindful of it so that I'm not being brought down into this depressed or anxious state.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I just had a thought that we're talking about metacognition, and I just thought how ironic it is that Facebook and Instagram, they become meta, and I was just like, okay, is that relate to metacognition, or are we talking about a toxic form of that? Like, but Ocean, you mentioned something else in psychology they call rumination, which is like where you're telling a story about something negative about yourself, and you're just kind of letting it repeat over and over. Like, I'm not good enough. I don't know about this. I don't know well enough about this topic, etc., etc. And that whole thing where you like imagine you're having a conversation with someone, then that escalates into an argument, and then you're trying to think of what they would say, and then how you would respond to that. And
Yes,
uh,
it's like that fantasy
yeah,
conversation that you're having with
yeah,
someone that's pretty much never going to happen, but for some reason
yeah,
you're like, I'm going to be the hero in this fake thing that's never going to happen. And like, I think that comes from almost like an ego attachment of like wanting to feel like you can get the better of someone, even if it's only a complete imagination.
definitely something we want to get a handle of. So if we're encouraging our friends at home to meditate, get a handle of the metacognition and get a handle of the argumentative scenarios in the head.
The beauty of meditation is really learning to observe your thoughts. And that's what we're doing in meditation. We're just observing our thoughts like clouds as they pass by. And we learn that they're independent, and we learn not to identify with our thoughts. And then it becomes easier then to deal with metacognition when you're not identifying with your thoughts. What is the difference between stress and actual mental health? Is
Ah,
there a demarcation there? When you talk about maybe like the first noble truth, all life is suffering, like there's
mm,
a prevailing sense of unease, right? That
yes,
it's almost like there's a prevailing sense of stress. We know as Buddhists, mental afflictions come from the mind, right? Where on that scale are we calling something a mental health issue versus this is just common stress?
the Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh said that everything, even unwholesome roots, have a use, right? So, for the Dharma, when we face stressful situations, they can be transformed into something of use to us. So it's not always readily apparent when it happens. Um, I would say as we become adults, it's less and less often that it's apparent that it actually will help us, because we become more wise in a certain extent, and then we're just kind of like, well, why is this happening? But then you have to. That's where the Roshi comes by and hits you with the stick and is like, right?
Well, it seems like a lot of our stress comes from the perceptions that we have and that we carry with us. Um, I notice a lot of the times I'll be with someone and they'll be maybe we'll be experiencing the same thing, and they'll be stressed out or it'll be bothering to them, and meanwhile I'm like, it's okay, dude. Like I'm just here. I'm just experiencing life, and meanwhile it's the same more or less thing that's happening. But we're both in the same place,
Mhm.
but the perception is what's different. And so I
Yeah.
think that perception is what's causing us, not the only cause of stress, but a big one.
I agree, and I always love that, Ocean. You like to bring up perception a lot, even in our private conversations. Um, and I every time it comes up, I'm like, of course. The perception is really the key here. No matter what we're dealing with, if we are getting caught up in that situation and it's causing us exacerbated suffering or worsened suffering, then it's because of our perception. There's this tenet in Buddhism, I think it's pronounced aditana, but it means determination. Basically, it's a sense of we need to be able to have some fortitude to withstand the trials of samsara and just of life. Sometimes my students will feel like, you know, I'm not feeling well, and or you know, I can tell that they're using a task avoidance strategy, which means that they're trying to not do their work by, you know, malingering. Like, I don't feel good. Can I go to the bathroom? But I have to sort of show them, like, to have some fortitude.
The more that we can kind of guard our senses in this way, I think even Thich Nhat Hanh kind of says as much, that we should be protecting ourselves so that we don't get brought down into more suffering.
Right.
And so the best way to do that is kind of, like you said, to cultivate this fortitude. If you're constantly being exposed to all of these unwholesome things, all of these sensational things, then I think it's going to have an impact on your health and decrease your ability to be fortified, so to speak.
Where do you confront sensational things?
Yeah, it's not just social media. It's, you know, on the news. The news has been a thing since your generation, so it's not just social media.
I know Walter Cronkite was driving everybody crazy. So, brothers, what are some ways that you all deal with stress, or, you know, if you're struggling with a mental health issue, what are some ways besides meditation that you try to deal with that?
Music.
That's a good one.
Okay.
Yeah, so along with music, actually, I would say deep relaxation. That can also be accompanied by music if you just kind of give yourself some time. I feel like a lot of people now in today's day and age, they don't really give themselves any time to just chill. They just are busy their entire day. They need to be constantly stimulated by something, and then when they go to sleep, they're like, oh, why can't I sleep? You didn't give yourself any time to relax before bed. And so now you're dealing with all those nasty thoughts that you didn't give that you didn't pay any attention to throughout the day. So you need to give yourself a break, and maybe like 10-15 minutes at least, where you can just chill, relax, and start to let go. And meditation is a really good way to do that as well, but it doesn't have to be. It can also be, like how Peace mentioned, through music. I love music. I'm a musician myself. Just put on some lo-fi, sit down, and just kind of zen out so that you're not being caught up in the stress throughout your day.
The meditation doesn't always have to be sitting meditation.
Yeah.
Either.
Right, exactly. We've got walking, working, sleeping.
You can really make meditation out of anything.
I had dental cleaning meditation earlier today.
That's wonderful.
Probably not your favorite form.
I can ignore that pain. Some other ones that I wanted to mention, I think that are really important. I think it's a trifecta of exercise, diet, and sleep.
Oh, I thought you were going to say poetry.
No.
That's good too. I love writing. Oh, that's a good one, writing. Okay, sorry, Sense, go ahead.
Well, that's a great one. But yes, exercise, diet, and sleep. I think that of those are the trifecta of just rounded health. Making sure that you get some kind of daily exercise, moving. I think that in fact, that changes your biochemistry in your brain instantly. As soon as you move, your brain chemistry is different. And I think that there are definitely studies that show that exercise is great for depression and anxiety. Changing your diet, eating a healthy diet, that's just going to make you feel better in the long run. And it does have great benefits overall. And then, you know, sleep. Either, like, for people who struggle with insomnia, try to find some kind of treatment for the insomnia. For people that are sleeping too much, maybe add more exercise. You know, there's extremes on both ends of that. But diet, sleep, and exercise, I think, are profoundly important. I think instantly, if you're feeling bad, just changing your posture. Taking a few deep breaths, like Ocean just mentioned, right in the spot. My favorite thing is 3 deep breaths through the nose, right? It'll fix you right away.
Good, Sense. That was awesome.
Those are really good and powerful tools. And you know, it's not particularly religious in the same sense that meditation kind of has this idea behind it of being a religious practice. But taking a few seconds to just pause and breathe and recollect yourself, that is something is available to anyone without any kind of stigma about it.
Kata and Kihon, Makiwara.
Yeah, you could do martial arts like this guy.
You don't do those things.
Well, I used to go to the gym. I used to do weightlifting, if you can believe it. Again, with how like skinny I am. But yeah, not anymore though. It became kind of a toxic environment for me, so I had to stop. But
yeah, I agree with that one.
But yeah, I think that the exercise definitely makes an impact on how you feel. You'll have more energy and you'll feel better about yourself.
I recommend, just because I struggle with it because of my let's say post-trauma from the army, yoga is a big one, and vipassana in bed, like vipassana, where it's just deep insight meditation but lying down, and you're like doing a kind of like a body scan where you're imagining you're scanning through your body. That process of like the body scan and just lying there, being mindful of the different parts of your body, that helps me fall asleep. Like I can't even get to my shoulders before I'm zonked out.
The body scan is so classic when it comes to that style of meditation, and it's so good, and it's available. If you struggle with these things, please try it.
I would also maybe suggest looking into therapy.
Yes.
I had experience with therapy myself in the past, and I found it personally to be very beneficial. I think that maybe there's a social stigma behind therapy, maybe that still lingers today. I would just encourage people to put that completely out of your mind and do what's best for you. Find somebody to talk to. It can be really beneficial.
I did therapy myself, and to be fair, there were some therapists that were a little bit more helpful than other ones that I've seen. But what was most impactful for me was actually group therapy, and I felt like I was able to kind of connect with people, and it was at my university. So there were people my own age, and they were all very non-judgmental, thankfully. And in that group setting, it feels like you can kind of express yourself more naturally than just this one-on-one conversation where you're just spewing all your, guts onto someone. Something about the group setting made it a lot more palatable for me. So if you're someone who has tried regular therapy and it didn't really work for you, maybe group therapy will be a good option for you.
Dear friends on YouTube, if you have any questions or concerns, please leave comments.
Thank you guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yeah.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.